Hey, another 1980s news. 1991's Deadpool is in a 1984 comic. So while Deadpool and Wolverine shattered box office records last weekend with a $440 million worldwide bow, Marvel president and CCO Kevin Feige made headlines at San Diego's Comic-Con. First, he revealed that the Russo brothers, the two brothers who directed Captain America's Civil War and the Avengers Infinity Saga, which is the last Avengers films that we got, will return to direct two Avengers films, Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. But they truly snapped the roof off of Hall H when they announced who would portray the villain, Doctor Doom, in those forthcoming movies. It will be Tony Stark actor Robert Downey Jr.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
John looks baffled.
Yeah.
It's just a big question mark for me. Yeah. How are they going to make that make sense anywhere in the universe? I have thoughts, but it would take forever. But
yeah, I will just say briefly, we have the multiverse, and in the comics, there is already at least one storyline where Tony Stark is Doctor Doom. So
yeah.
Oh.
I think the bigger question for me is if I can buy Robert Downey Jr. as this sort of, as evil and dark as and heavy as Doom needs to be at this point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
He was so perfectly cast as Tony Stark. Yeah. The man in real life mapped onto the man in the comics and then the man in the films. And it just works so perfectly. And the multiverse is pretty played out, I think. I mean, to dip into that well again. And finally, it just feels like a Hail Mary from Marvel. Deadpool.
Anyway, from the comments that Feige made, because this is all going to tie back to the 1980s. You can see how marvelously I weave this back here. From the comments that Feige made, it seems that
marvelously.
Yes, marvelously. Oh, and you remind me, John. Deadpool himself in the film says Marvel needs to be done with the multiverse. Let's be done with it.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh great, that's good. Yeah, let's get back to one thing.
I agreed. Yeah, he basically said what I just played out.
Yeah,
come on,
but
look,
doesn't work out. But the end of the film, I'm like, I don't think they did what they said they were going to do. Anyway, whatever.
It's a crutch.
But it's based on Feige's comments at Comic-Con. It seems like Doctor Doom won't make his grand entrance until Avengers Doomsday, since we need to set him up for the subsequent film, Secret Wars, in which Doctor Doom plays a role. It seems like they're trying to. I'm going to skip this part. Blah 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 blah. Speaking of Deadpool and Secret Wars, although the Merc with a Mouth made his debut in a February 1991 issue of the New Mutants, Deadpool actually appears in the 1984 comic Secret Wars storyline because comic books. Now, originally, what's that? They can do whatever they want. I mean, they can and they do whatever they want.
Predict the future. Okay, good on them.
Well, it's slightly more direct and slightly more clever than that. Released in 1984, the original Secret Wars was a bestseller. At the time, it sold more copies than any other comic book in the previous 25 years. Even though it was a financial success, it was roundly criticized because folks saw it as just kind of trite and unoriginal and juvenile. And the story, in that sense, it's kind of simple. The plot is that there's this cosmic entity known as the Beyonder, becomes fascinated with Earth's superheroes, and creates Battleworld, which is essentially a planet in a distant galaxy. Stocks it with weapons and technology and even costumes, or the ability to change your costume if you want. Ooh. And then teleports groups of heroes and supervillains against their will to compete, forcing them to fight one another.
And then televises it Thursdays on Fox.
Yeah, and I think the only thing missing from this, John, is the Gorn. Right? Come on.
Yeah. Yep.
This is a Star Trek episode. Now, in addition to being a popular series, the run impacted future storylines. For example, Spider-Man changes into a costume provided on Battleworld, unaware that it's actually an alien symbiote. Yes, it's a symbiote that it's the one that ultimately bonds with Eddie Brock and gives birth to the villain known as Venom. When Secret Wars was released, writer Fabian Nicieza and artist Rob Liefeld were years from creating Deadpool. Now, that didn't stop, though. Cullen Bunn and artist Matteo Lolli from dropping Wade Wilson into the original Secret Wars series. In 2015, they published Deadpool's Secret Wars, which is a retelling of the 1984 tale that shows how Deadpool was intimately involved in the entire struggle on Battleworld.
Well, it's a big retcon. He wasn't actually in the original Secret Wars, but they've retconned it in a book that shows he really was. We just didn't see it.
Yes, and they explain why he's not.
It's the Marty McFly thing, right? He's up in the rafters. We just didn't see it. We didn't know he was up in the rafters.
Like in Back to the Future 2?
Yeah, exactly. He was up there the whole time.
Yeah. And in very Deadpool style, because, you know, in the films, Deadpool breaks the fourth wall, and that's because in the comics he does as well. He knows he's in a comic book, Deadpool. But the opening title page, which is the original opening we see in this 2015 version, what looks like the original opening title page for the story, but in red, it's scribbled over the title and says, Wrong Secret Wars, written on the side, and reads, back in 1984, all the big heroes were taken to space for a secret war, and here's what really happened.
Oh.
And it plays out in obviously a very Deadpool way. None of the heroes that he admires, you know, who he longs to have the respect of, know who he is. He talks incessantly, making, you know, tons of quips and witty remarks. The novel's filled with 80s references, including, you know, Cold War humor, standard sort of macho action movie, you know, banner. And pop culture nods, including one I remember, which is how hard it is to get a Cabbage Patch Kid. And one really cool meta moment refers to the 1980s Secret War toy line. And this is where it really departs from the original comic story. When Marvel released the comic, Mattel released superhero figures that came with a secret shield that had a lenticular disc in it. It flashed, you know, when you moved it, it flashed between images, different images that showed scenes from the hero's life, as well as an image of their secret identity. In the comic, the retcon comic, Spider-Man knocks Deadpool into what turns out to be just a wall of all these shields, and they almost look like video screens. So there's each one is depicting a different hero aspects of the hero's life, and I think they determined as some sort of artificial intelligence. They think that must be showing these images and it can predict the future. It's showing all of history. Deadpool takes one that's his and uses it then as a shield, just like Captain America, you know.
Yes.
And makes a lot of jokes about how, look, I've got one too. Don't be jealous of mine's got images on it, you know. That kind of thing. And as I mentioned, which I think this is one of the examples of how they cleverly sort of change or maybe explain what happened in the original comic, Deadpool finds the machine that, you know, gives them whatever costume. It gives them a costume change if they want. And Deadpool is the first to wear the black alien symbiote costume. Although he ultimately discards it. But it's suggested that maybe he tainted it in such a way that actually leads to it becoming Venom instead of maybe what it originally would have been.
Okay.
That's a clever bunch of little retcons. That's cute.
Yeah. Anyway, much like the comics, you know, he's fighting for their love and admiration and wants to actually much like the comics and also the films that are better known to folks, he wants to be respected. And so throughout this entire battle, he's trying to show his worth. And he plays a very important role because of his, you know, particular power of regeneration. He's able to withstand a lot more than any of the other heroes, and ultimately helps save the day. And there's an emotional explanation provided why Deadpool is not in the official telling of the story, which I won't give away if you want to read it. But anyway, I think it's pretty well done and clever.
Interesting.
And of course, I just tell you the story for SEO purposes. So there you go.
There, we said Deadpool. Listen to us.
I Google. I know Deadpool. I know he was created in the 90s. There's got to be an 80s connection. Let's see. Are you kidding me? Really?
There is.
Not at all contorted.
We've some comments.
Yeah.
back a little bit. There's one from Owl. He was talking about the Time Bandits.
Okay.
There was something about the original. Gilliam filmed it from the viewpoint of the kid and the little people. That's why it was so charming and hit us so well when it came out.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
What is it? Yeah. Does it make a difference that these folks that break into his bedroom, they're around the same height as him, although they're more mature, more experienced? I wonder what that
adults, right?
means. Yeah, for the kid from his perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.